Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful December the 12th, 2019. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I was sitting around thinking about Mr. Rogers today, thinking about it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, but except it turned cold and rainy down here, so I don't know if it's so beautiful anymore.
You just need your red sweater on, Big C. It's all fair in love and war when you have that red sweater. I want to say Big C Sports is brought to you by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Also, Big C Sports, powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our national sponsors on podcast and TV shows. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I want to make sure, as we're coming up on this beautiful holiday weekend, again, it seems to be, we're almost at the first of the year, but I want to make sure that we pay homage to our military veterans, military hotline for people going through issues, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That is 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it's important like every day of the year as we see 2019 rapidly coming to an end, Charlton. We should always think about what our soldiers did for us, for have our years to come to an end, Charlton, to be able to celebrate the holidays and the blessing of a new year coming in. The military veterans have fought throughout time here in the United States, overseas, abroad, to protect the sovereignty of this country, Charlton. But we have to protect the mental welfare and physical well-being of those veterans when they return back home and when they're no longer a part of the military.
Yep.
The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there for these veterans to have a source to reach out to have someone to speak to who is non-judgmental. We see so many of our veterans every day in this great country going through hardships. We see them on the street. We see them standing on street corners with signs, please help.
Yeah.
We got to find a way in America to care more about our veterans than that. The National Suicide Hotline number, Charlton, is one of those ways. We lose some 20 veterans a day in America to suicide. A horrific disease, Charlton, we have to find a way nationally to stop. Because not just our veterans, but also our young people in America, Charlton, are being lost to this horrific disease every day. We can't turn our backs on our great veterans, especially in this time of the year when it's cold and it's damp, and so many of these veterans are homeless. We have to find a way to protect these veterans in every way, and the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is one of those ways to start, Charles.
And I hope people will follow and take heed. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. And hopefully get some help. I want to just also wag our own tail. Big C Sports has been given notice, one of the top downloaded podcasts on the iHeartRadio network, so really appreciate that. I want to just touch on something that happened before we get into some college football. I know a lot of people have issues. I want to celebrate a mega sports agent. His name is Scott Boras. I believe he's in Northern California. He represents Garrett Cole, Anthony Rendon, Steven Strasburg. That good old boy has brought in signing contracts with these guys, $814 million in contracts this month alone. That's 3 players. He still has more guys to go, like Henyon Rue, Dallas Keuchel, a lot of other players too. Big C, that's a lot of money, especially when he gets about 5% of $814 million. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you look at baseball, baseball has the greatest union in all of professional sports. and the way that the players are able to go out and renegotiate contracts, to go out and deal in arbitration, Charlton, something that the other leagues don't have. But when you think about the length of a baseball season, when you break it down per game, it's not greater than what you get in football and basketball.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of empty seats in baseball stadium. I think last year we had three major players that signed $330 million. Machado was one of them. Harper was another. And then the Trout. And none of those guys made the playoffs. All they did was really fleece their teams. I mean, making the money is great, but they're fleecing their teams. It's amazing. Not one of those teams made the playoffs. The Phillies didn't make it. The Padres didn't make it. And the Angels didn't make it. But they can always say, hey, we signed the biggest contract in baseball. Did nothing for them, Big C. But there's also something that I want to touch on, because there's every game people talk about, I can't believe that was not a call made. I can't believe that was a tripping call with Dallas and New England. I can't believe it was a not a pass interference call. You can pick any team for that. Think about this. When you talked about this a couple of years ago, when the Supreme Court said they want everyone to get in on the money, Big C. Online betting, New Jersey produced $96 million in tax revenue. Now, since May of 2018, legal sports betting has produced over $10 billion with a B. That's $10 billion. That's a lot of money, Big C. Now, we wonder why plays are not called the way we see with our own eyes, but according to the American Gaming Association, and people wonder why we see bad calls. There's more money made when shenanigans go on, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the money is bet regardless of the outcome of the game, Charlton, back and forth. And sports betting has always gone on ever since they've had games. You go back to the early days of Major League Baseball. It just happens to be more out in the open now, instead of the backroom parlor betting that the government wanted to get a hand in and get some of the tax money because this money was flowing and there was no tax revenue going into the local state and city coffers.
Yeah, they wanted to get their hands in the cookie jar tube. They said there's too much money. It's like cannabis. People didn't stop smoking it just because it was illegal, and they didn't start because it was legalized. The state said, we want some of that money too, Big C. And we all want money. But when I just talked about the gambling thing and the Supreme Court, them good old boys that set law, and they wanted everyone to get in on the cookie jar. Well, today, breaking news this morning, there are some 10 NFL players that have been indicted by the Justice Department. They filed claims for injuries against the insurance policies. There's also a pot of gold that the NFL set aside with Gene Upshaw to help retired players. And so players were filing claims on things they did not buy, and it's up to about $4 million in false claims, and I think they paid out $3.4 million. And it's amazing how you would think that everybody that played NFL football is set for life, and I know you talk about how many players spend $1 million a year keeping their bodies healthy, Big C. This is a stain on the league because we just talked about the concussion issues. Dr. Benamala, Will Smith played that movie. But they don't really care about you when you're out of the league. So some players may do stupid things, but we've heard of guys taking their own lives because they were in pain. I'm not making that excuse for this, though, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's no new news that the NFL has never cared about anybody, Charlton. That's what its emblem stands for, not for long.
Yeah.
And not for long as a career, and not for long after your career. You only get 5 years of medical coverage once you retire from the league. After that, you're on your own. A lot of players, Charlton, at that time have become destitute because they've gone through a lot of the money that they've made during their career. And every NFL player was not making a lot of money. You got to understand that the superstars on a team right now, even in the NFL, they eat up anywhere between 60 and 70% of the salary cap.
Yeah.
That's between 5 and 6 players. So you have another 45 players, Charlton, that have to eat up the rest of the 25 to 30% of the salary cap. That's not a lot of money to go around.
Yeah.
And you're taxed at an exorbitant rate when you're in the league. So when everybody thinks that an NFL or former NFL player is wealthy, not up until recently, Charlton, did players start making money. You know, in the mid-'80s, when the NFL was last struck, I believe it was in '86.
Yeah.
And, the league was striking because the average salary of a player, Charlton, was less than $200,000. So don't think that all former NFL players are wealthy because you see these huge contracts on television.
Yeah, and it's a story. I mean, it's been all over the news today. It's almost taken the impeachment hearings off the headline for news stories. People want to see when NFL players fall in the face. But it just goes to show, you juxtapose what we just talked about with Scott Boras and the $814 million in contracts that were just, issued out. And that's between three players, Big C. And then we talk about NFL players, guys that they're almost demonized and vilified for really having pain. Now, I don't know what happened. I don't know if guys really needed this stuff, but they have to adjust the mental capacity. When we talk about CTE, are guys able to think properly? We don't know that. And I hate to just have guys thrown under the bus and saying, I can't believe they filed for $4 million in claims where owners are getting, hundreds of millions of dollars and not offering insurance the past 5 years for their athletes. Do you think this will either widen that gap of health care, that forever, Big C, lifelong, or will it change it at all, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the players are just as much at fault as anybody in these situations. Throughout my career and everybody else's career, Charlton, players fought for money. They wanted money up front. They didn't think about money and health insurance on the back end. There's always sacrifices in negotiations. You have to give up something.
Yeah.
And players wanting all this money up front that you can see on the news stations, Charlton, and in the newspapers.
Yeah.
This player signs this $100 million contract, $155 million contract.
Right.
That's what players were fighting for. Players weren't fighting for money on the back end like the coaches. They have a retirement fund the rest of your life where you're going to be guaranteed $100,000 a year for the rest of your life, or $200,000 a year for the rest of your life based on service done in the league. They were fighting for money now so I could go buy a new car, a new house.
Yeah, and I want you to elaborate on that, because when people say, "Oh, it can't be done," it's impossible. The revenue with NFL and other leagues is growing; it's not shrinking. So why do we justify even a coach like Kitchens, that probably going to be out of Cleveland after this year, but he'll have health insurance and retirement income for the rest of his life, and he hasn't done a good job. I'm not just singling him out, but there's a lot of guys that fit that bill. But the guys that play for him 5 years down the road, people with the CTE issues, I'm not saying Junior Seau was the reason, but there's a lot of players. We've heard Kyle Turley talk about that. Guys that go through depression and other issues, and there's enough money in the pot to help them. So I'm not blaming a guy for trying to be drastic in his own health, but why do we have it for coaches and not for players, Big C? Your thoughts?
Because the coaches negotiated for that, Charlton. That's something that maturity brings to you. When you look at players and they're coming out of college and they're going into the NFL, they're looking for signing bonus.
Yeah.
They're looking for their Twitter account, their Facebook account, Charlton. They're looking for people to recognize what they have. They're looking to go to the jewelry store before the NFL draft and drop $100,000 on jewelry so they can walk across the stage on draft night, Charlton. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for how can they spend their money now? How can they get instant gratification?
Yeah.
A coach knows that his career is going to end at any time based on his players' productivity. He wants to be taken care of on the back end. The coaches are smart when they go in and negotiate their contracts, just like the referees going in and negotiating their contracts. They want health insurance and they want pension. That's what they talk about. Players say, I want my money now. So it's the stupidity from the players that have them hurting once they leave the game, not the intelligence, Charlton.
NFL Players Association, the union for players, would you put the culpability on them at all? They're in a position to help players, or is it just to shield the league from helping players long-term? Big C, your thoughts?
No, Charlton, it's the players. The players hire their associate. They hire the director of the Players Association. He's an employee of the players.
Yeah.
And the players, he's going in negotiating for what the players make first and foremost. What players want, they want signing bonus, Charlton. They want to have less time in practice. These are the things that they're negotiating.
Yeah.
The players can easily say that we want to set aside X amount of the salary cap every year to go into our retirement pension, Charlton.
Yeah.
You only have to play 3 years to be fully vested in the NFL pension-wise.
Yeah.
So many players have played long beyond that, but a lot of players have only played 3 games or less also in their career.
Yeah.
So it behooves the players, Charlton, to negotiate for that pension money. It's just like the old players. Players that played in my era and before that, Charlton, they don't receive any of the benefits that the players get now.
Yeah.
The current players don't negotiate anything for the older retired players. They're only concerned about their personal welfare of today while they're in the league.
Yeah, it's amazing. People got to read up on it. It's all over the place. I feel bad for those guys, though. I know there's some emotional things going on with players when they feel desperate enough to do something that foolish, like doctoring up insurance papers. But I wish them all the best. I'm sure they'll get some legal help in that matter, Big C. I also want to focus on some players that want to also get to that next level in the world of professional football, paid football. I want to focus today college football freshmen, true freshmen, All-American team, 2019 on offense. Quarterback Sam Howell, North Carolina. Howell's 35 touchdowns. That's the most for a true freshman in FBS history, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about that, and he had a coach that was back in his first year at North Carolina, but Howell really stepped up, Charlton, and put up great numbers, and so there's a great future at North Carolina in football. They may challenge Clemson pretty soon.
They beat Clemson this year. They just didn't show a lot of replays. It's amazing. I've seen replays where they show there's a camera in the bottom of the surface of the field, and they can look up to the sky, Big C, and they can do it by the pylons, but they would not show that angle when Clemson got had by North Carolina. But it's all fair and love and more. They can split that money with the conference. Running back Breece Hall, Iowa State, 842 yards, rushing 9 touchdowns. Running back George Helani of Boise State on the blue turf, 912 yards and 7 touchdowns doing this thing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about those two dominant freshman running backs, Charlton, at Iowa State, steps in with Brock Purdy, quarterback who was third in the nation in passing yards, and as a true freshman leading the team in rushing. You think about Haloy at Boise State. There was the first time that Boise State ever gone undefeated in conference play. And he had to deal with 3 different signal callers handing the football off to him, Charlton. And he made all-conference and first-team All-American as a true freshman.
Yeah, as true freshmen, these good boys were playing high school football last year. Wide receiver David Bell, Purdue, 86 catches, 1,335 yards, 7 touchdowns. He took it to the house 7 times, Big C. Wide receiver C.J. Johnson, East Carolina, 54 catches, 908 yards. And he had 4 touchdowns, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about David Bell, Charlton. He joined a team that already had the best receiver in the conference who got hurt halfway through the season. Not only that, Charlton, he had to play with 3 different starting quarterbacks also at Purdue and go out and have a record-setting season at that university as a freshman with over 1,300 yards receiving.
Yeah, he was really doing it, and a lot of that is caught in the cold, catching passes when your hands are cold. So very good job by that young man. Tight end, Jalen Widmeyer, Texas A&M, 31 catches, 419 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Playing high school football last year, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about this young man, Widmeyer, Charlton, this is a young freshman tight end, true freshman, like you said, playing high school football last year. This year, Texas A&M, when you think about this team's losses, Charlton, all of its team's losses came against top 10 ranked college football teams.
Yep.
So when you think about a baptism in education, Widmeyer played against the best defenses in the country.
Yeah, he really did. Offensive lineman, you look at Nick Boyker, Ole Miss, offensive lineman, Evan Neal, Alabama, offensive lineman Dante Lucas, Florida State, another great offensive lineman, Brian Hudson, Virginia Tech, and then maybe one of the better is Ryan Morris out of University of Tennessee. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what's so promising about all these young men, Charlton, are that they're building blocks of a college team. When you think about football, you have to build through a great offensive line to be able to run, protect, and pass protect, Charlton. And these road graders up front, all of their teams have made a bowl game this offseason. So you think about the future being bright behind the guys that they're blocking for, Charlton.
Yep.
Those offensive linemen have a bright future.
Well, they have a bright future, but also I want to say congratulations to the guys that made it on the defensive side of the ball. You know, defense wins championships, so they say. Defensive line, George Karlaftis, Purdue, 7.5 sacks, 17 tackles for loss. Defensive lineman, Drake Jackson, USC, 5.5 sacks. Defensive line, Kayvon Thibodeau, University of Oregon Ducks. He had 9 sacks on the season, often being double-teamed. Defensive lineman Tyler Davis, University of Clemson. Good old boy had 3 sacks, Big C, for Dabo Swinney. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about Purdue once again, Charlton. This is a team with a great and bright future in the Big Ten on both sides of the ball. You got an All-American freshman wide receiver. You got an All-American freshman defensive line. So when you think about the recruitment era that goes on out there in high school football, Charlton, and where these guys play, majority of these players that you spoke about, Charlton, did not play in those top 10 teams that we always talk about on Friday Night Lights.
That's right.
These came from your everyday high schools around the country. They don't get the recognition of being one of the top 10 high school teams in the country, but it shows the great talent that's out there nationwide that you can come from your average high school that's not a preparatory school, and you be one of the best players in college football as a freshman.
Yeah, they're all over the place, Big C. Also on the defensive side, linebacker Omar Speech, Oregon State, 73 tackles, 3.5 sacks in the season. Linebacker Henry Tototo out of Tennessee, he had 64 tackles for the Volunteers. You would have thought they would have had a better season this year, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they did. They had a good season. You think about where Tennessee came from. They started out the season, Charlton, 0-4.
Yeah.
This was a team that everybody was crying about the head coach, Jeremy Pruitt. They finished up strong in the second half of the season. They finished the rest of the season, Charlton, 7-1, after starting 0-4. So Tennessee had an outstanding finish to the season. They got two true All-American freshmen, Charlton, on their team. So Jeremy Pruitt has done a great job of recruiting for the Volunteers and seem to get them back on track there in the SEC.
Yeah, they have arguably the most beautiful end zone in the SEC. I love the way they have the checkered end zone, Big C. Defensive back Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame, 4 interceptions. Defensive back Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU, 6 interceptions. Another DB, Tawan Mullen, Indiana, 25 tackles, no interceptions. He'll have to pick that up next year. Defensive back Ahmad Gardner, Cincinnati, 3 interceptions. Defensive back Damani Richards, Texas A&M. That good boy had 63 tackles and 1 pick. Again, playing high school football last year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it seems that Texas A&M had a stellar recruiting class, Charlton, when you think about what they've done at the tight end and defensive back position. I look at Daryl Stingley Jr. from LSU, the nation's #1 team, undefeated. This kid led the nation in interceptions as a true freshman.
Yeah.
So when you think about them boys down there in that Who Dat Nation, what they're doing down there, LSU, that Tiger team, Charlton, is going to be a tough out for years to come.
Yeah, I heard that Ogeron brought some crab cakes. He had 20 pounds of crab cakes ordered because the restaurant was so snooty they didn't have crab cakes. The crab cakes exist in every restaurant in the South. Makes me your thoughts.
Well, in the South and the Northeast, Charlton, I mean, the succulent crab cakes, when they make them out of blue crab meat, very chunky and sweet.
It sounds like you've been hanging around Ogeron. Hopefully they didn't order the libation for the celebration, Big C. Also, when you think about college players that were high school players last year, punter Austin McNamara, Texas Tech, ranked 27th nationally in yards per punt. 27. He was in high school last year. Kicker Cade York, LSU, was never a liability for the #1 Tigers. And then returner Josh Youngblood, Kansas State, they knocked off Oklahoma, Big C, had 3 kick returns for a touchdown in a mere 15 attempts. Big C, he was doing his thing. Your thoughts?
Lightning in a bottle, Charlton, and one of those kick returns came when they knocked off Oklahoma, who eventually made it to the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's amazing how I just love so much about what's going on in the world of sports. I want to spend some time. I know we talked about the Boris with the $814 million, and then you have for baseball players in contract, 3 guys, and then you have some former NFL players that were got their hand caught in the cookie basket. I would like to look at them. We talk about mental illness. Maybe look at if they had CTE, and don't be so stringent. Some of these guys could face many, many decades incarcerated by a crooked leak. I would hate to see that happen. So I want to turn to the other side of the moon, Big C. The NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year nominees as of the 2019 regular season comes to a close. Each team, they nominate one player who goes far and above and beyond in the community, and the winner receives $250,000 to be donated to the charity of their choice. The 31 remaining players will receive $50,000 donated to their favorite charity, courtesy of Nationwide Insurance and the NFL Foundation. The winner will be announced on the eve of Super Bowl 54 down in Miami. I want to just bring up some players And then you give me your thoughts. David Johnson, Arizona Cardinals. He's proven to be more than just one on-the-field lethal player for the NFL. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, as we sit up and give homage to those who are nominated for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, Charlton, this award signifies what players have done. We hear so much negativity, as you talked about the players with the insurance scandal going on early in the show. We don't hear enough about player involvement in community outreach that NFL players do. We hear about the large salaries and the holdouts and not going to training camp, Charlton. These are the things that the media wants to talk about.
Yep.
But the NFL does so much good by the community from the players, and not just the players that are nominated for the Man of the Year. Yes, there's going to be 32 players that are symbolic and recognized by each team that are nominated by the team, Charlton. But there is a plethora of players within each team and organization in the NFL, and even coaches, who go above and beyond their salary and their play on the field as far as the time and monies that they give back to the community, to those that are less fortunate, those that are in dire need, and to help steer the path of so many young people in America, Charlton, to get them on the right path.
Always trying to get them on the right path. Ricardo Allen, Atlanta Falcons, joining the Falcons in 2014 as a fifth-round pick. Allen's become one of the most important players for the Atlanta Falcons. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, being a stalwart on the field defensively, Charlton, is always great, but also being that stalwart in the community. When you think about Atlanta being in the heart of the South, and there's so many deprived areas in that region, Charlton, through his foundation and outreach, he's such a plus to their community.
Speaking of another player, they take their heart with them, Big C. I know negativity makes the news at times, and our job is just to report the facts, good or bad. People can Google what they want. Brandon Carr, Baltimore Ravens. Carr's no stranger to being nominated for this award, having also landed that nod in 2015 as a member of the Dallas Cowboys, and in 2018 for the Baltimore Ravens. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, but when you think about Brandon Carr, he's most recognizable on a catch on Monday night by Odell Beckham when he made a one-handed grab in the end zone. The defensive back on that play was Brandon Carr. But Brandon Carr's lifeline is more important in covering wide receivers in the NFL with his community outreach, Charlton. And you think about that, he's done this with two great organizations.
Yeah.
And so as you think about a player, we always think about the exploits on the field, but Brandon Carr is more concerned about the community of Dallas and Baltimore than he always is about what's going on the field.
And keep in mind, these players, they're all voted on by their teammates. The teammates choose it. So everybody knows who's doing a lot, and a lot of good players do a lot of good things on and off the field. It's great that the teammates, the guys that travel with them, that bathe with them, that practice with them, blood, sweat, and tears, not some media person doing it. So that makes it even more awarding to me. Lorenzo Alexander, Buffalo Bills, being an NFL player is more to Alexander than simply looking great on film and on the stat line. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, being a part of that community, anybody who's been to the Northeast and knows of the hardships of those cities, they were industrial belt lines for America in the 70s. And in the 80s came along, Mechanism, Charlton, drove a lot of people out of business back in those days and left a lot of impoverished community. Alexander's been one of those to reach out and help uplift so many of those people in the Buffalo area.
He really has, Big C. Cam Newton, Carolina Panthers, while the football headlines focus on Cam Newton being sidelined much of the season with an injury on his foot. Big C, what it has been able to achieve in North Carolina with the Cam Newton Foundation is nothing short of excellent. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, Cam has been a stalwart ever since he's been drafted into the NFL. His programs for kids' education and health, Charlton, he's always been with that exercise program that the NFL's had. He's done plenty of community outreach in the Carolinas. He's an icon on and off the field in the Carolinas.
On and off the field in the Carolinas. We're going to do what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We'll take that pause and come back. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about some great players that have also been nominated by their teams. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Appreciating iHeartRadio, acknowledging the Big C Sports, one of the most popular podcasts in their network, of the largest network in the United States. Really appreciate that. Back to NFL players. Again, each player is nominated by their team. They go far above the community effort that they have to do. The winner's going to get $250,000 to be donated to a charity of their choice. The 31 remaining players are going to get $50,000, and that goes to a favorite charity, courtesy of Nationwide Insurance and the NFL Foundation. The winner will be announced at Super Bowl 54 in beautiful Miami, Florida. Allen Robinson, Chicago Bears. Big C, Robinson spent most of his NFL career with the Jacksonville Jaguars before joining the Bears, but he wasted no time integrating himself with the great community of Chicago. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, his work left the Florida Gulf Coast, Charlton, coming up to Chicago. He left the warmth and came to the cold.
Yeah.
But he brought the warmth of his heart to Chicago with him, Charlton, to reach out into those communities that have been so stricken by violence.
Yeah, and I love when players can take their heart from one team to the next, even though you don't often hear about it. That's what we really want to mention it on Big C Sports. Giovanni Bernard, Cincinnati Bengals, born to Haitian immigrants in Florida. Bernard did not have a silver spoon hanging from his mouth as he grew up. Thyroid cancer claimed his mother's life in 1999, and his Bernard Family Foundation, it dedicates all of his efforts in her memory. What a great cause, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charleston, we often hear on sports channels about the V Foundation and the fight against cancer.
That's right.
Giovanni Bernard of the Cincinnati Bengals, Charlton, is one of those people that's on the front line. When you think about a player in the NFL dedicating his hard work off the field to fight that horrific disease of cancer.
And just imagine, everybody has their own way to get into the NFL, and anywhere in life you go, it's about being persistent. Sometimes you start last and you finish first, or vice versa. Really appreciate what that young man has done. Jarvis Landry, Cleveland Browns, a rabid supporter for the fight against cystic fibrosis. Landry lost his high school sweetheart to an inherited disease, and the cause has remained close to his heart, even as an athlete. Big C, your thoughts?
And, this is one of those players, Charlton, when you think about something that afflicts you as a child, and he's grown into a man, and he knows that he has a way to go out and try to help others, Charlton, fight this horrific disease. And Jarvis Landry has been a trailblazer in that when he was in Miami and now in Cleveland.
Now he's doing a really good cause. Travis Frederick, Dallas Cowboys. Frederick isn't only a nominee for this award, but also the front runner for the NFL Comeback Player of the Year for the Cowboys. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about Frederick, Charlton, not only as a player, but he had to fight his own fight last year. He lost his last season in the NFL due to an illness, Charlton, that he was able to overcome. And now he's back on the field fighting for the Dallas Cowboys to try to get into the playoffs. But he's also fighting those, Charlton, for those that are less fortunate.
Yeah, he's really doing a great job. Justin Simmons, Denver Broncos. Simmons become one of more than an impactful player for the Broncos on this roster this year, but he's just as important to Denver because of what he does Monday through Saturday, and people don't even know about it as much. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the volunteer work of NFL players, and that's what Simmons does, Charlton, when he's not walking around with Denver Broncos gear on his back, he's out fighting for the people of the street doing volunteer work in Denver.
Yeah, he does a great job, too, Big C, in the Mile High State of Colorado. Blake Martinez, Green Bay Packers. Martinez made sure that he touches as many lives as possible, and that's led him to community give back, not only into the Green Bay community where he lives and works, but also his home state of Arizona. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is what players do. We see the spotlight when the camera's on and when they make great plays on the football field. But Blake Martinez knows how to reach out into the community of Green Bay, which is a very together community, but to go back home to Arizona, not just after the season is over, Charlton, but throughout the year and help those in need.
He really does a good job with this cause, Big C. DJ Reader, Houston Texans. there's a cause that really hits close to home for Reader because he lost his father, David, to kidney failure. Since then, he's actively supported the National Kidney Foundation, which I advise everyone to do. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's a horrific disease that has afflicted many Americans, and you think about people living on dialysis and hoping that they can find a kidney donor or someone to match. And here's Reader, who lost his father to this horrific disease of kidney failure, Charlton. And so many Americans appreciate all of what he is doing to help.
He has a heart of gold, Big C. Pierre Desir, Indianapolis coach, the veteran cornerback, is well-traveled at the NFL level, but he's never let his dedication to his respective community change him simply because he's been asked to relocate so many times. He still has a heart of gold, and he shows it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is the heart of an NFL player. Even though I've been forced to move and relocate my family, every community that I play in is my family, and I reach out and do all that I can to help and support that community's causes, Charlton.
Yeah, really, really good cause. A lot of great players. It's amazing it's going to be one that's chosen when they all should be chosen because they're amazing. See Alex Campbell, Jacksonville Jaguars. Anyone who knows Cialis knows what he's all about. It's not simply devouring opposing quarterbacks. His CRC Foundation does phenomenal work in helping the youth develop, but it doesn't stop there, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Calais Campbell, you know, when you put the youth in the forefront, Charlton, you're molding your future in America, and that's what Calais does. He's a former University of Miami Hurricane, so he's been in that state his entire life, Charlton, and his outreach to the young people, that community, has been very beneficial.
Yeah, he's a very good athlete and an even bigger heart of a person, Big C. Dustin Colquitt, Kansas City Chiefs punter. He needs love too. Punters need love too, Big C, and Colquitt is one who gives more than he might receive, and he's never batted an eye when doing it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Colquitt, Charlton, his entire family has been kickers in the NFL. His dad, his brother in Charlton. And so he's kicked his way into the hearts of the Kansas City area, and he has gone out and done many community outreach programs, and he's been nominated by his team. You think about all of the great players on the Kansas City Chiefs that we see in the highlight reels. The biggest highlight to the teammates, though, Charlton, is Dustin Colquitt.
Yeah, very good job, Big C. Uchenna Nwosu, Los Angeles Chargers. You name it, calls, and Nwosu likely has his fingerprint on it. But one of his champions vehemently was saying his cause is My Cause Cleats, which supports children in the diabetes world, Big C, the Diabetes Foundation that he's put together. Your thoughts?
As we think of obesity nowadays, Charlton, in America, how it's become so rampant, children diabetes is one of the symptoms of that, Charlton. And here's Orosu, who has reached out, Charlton, trying to stem children diabetes, which is a tremendous cause.
Yeah, too much sugar in almost everything, Big C, and not enough exercise and water. And that's just among some of it, Big C. Andrew Whitworth, Los Angeles Rams. Think about this Pro Bowler, a two-time first-team All-Pro offensive tackle, before he joined the Rams in 2017, he got right to work getting things done in the community. It's called the Big Whit Foundation, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he brought that foundation from Cincinnati with him, Charlton, but Whitworth has been a stalwart with the Rams in and out, on the field and out in the community. And to outreach to the youth of that greater Los Angeles area, Charlton, is a very admirable thing.
And LA is so big. Anything that you need, you can find people having a need for help in Los Angeles. He's done a great job there, Big C. Devin Gottschall, Miami Dolphins. At the end of the day, it's all about doing the right thing on and off the field. And what Gottschall said in November is not empty rhetoric. The Gottschall Foundation, Big C, Shaw Foundation, is partnering with Microsoft and provides support to at-risk youth with programs that include healthy nutrition and exercise, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, so many kids, as you talked about, Charlton, and children diabetes don't have the healthy food nor the exercise that they need. And when you think about Gottschall's, foundation, partnering with Microsoft to be able to run spreadsheets for these kids, Charlton, to show how to better their lives. What an admirable thing.
Yeah, it really is. We encourage kids to just drink more water and get out and exercise a little bit. Not a big effort, but it can go a long way. Kyle Rudolph, Minnesota Vikings. It's not the first time that Rudolph has been nominated by the Vikings for Man of the Year award, and I'm sure Big C is not going to be the last. Your thoughts?
Well, Kyle Rudolph is a monster on the field. You think about this 6'6" tight end. And to get around in the land of 10,000 lakes up there in Minneapolis, Charlton, to be able to reach so many people that are in need, Kyle Rudolph is one of those true Vikings.
Yeah, he's a really amazing person. Kyle Van Noy, New England Patriots. Van Noy, he received the Ron Burton Community Service Award in 2019 for his involvement in local area and his Van Noy Valor Foundation. He does a great work, Big C. Your thoughts?
You think about being one of the greatest defenses in the NFL and to be able to have time to do community outreach.
Yeah.
This is what Van Noy does, not just with his time, but with his money also, Charlton. You know, when they always talk about put your money where your mouth is, this is what these NFL players are doing, Charlton.
They've been doing it, and you'll hear more about indictments today than you'll hear about all these 32-plus players that are doing their thing. Terran Armstead, New Orleans Saints, the veteran offensive tackle. He's great at protecting the blind side of the great Drew Brees, but he's just as productive at what he does off the field in the New Orleans community, Big C.
Well, you know, here's Armstead out there, the outreach. When we think about what happened in Katrina, which left so many people impoverished in that New Orleans basis, Charlton, Armstead has been one of the community leaders going out, helping getting these people's lives back on track.
Yeah, he's done a great job. And New Orleans really affected because everybody knows when they're cheering at the Dome, that's where a lot of people were they had to go there just to have some refuge while they were getting back on their feet. So there's a lot of emotions down in that great stadium. Nate Soldier, New York Giants. To know Soldier, to know a general off the field, Big C, a gentle giant. No pun intended. Even more impressive than his local area givings is his willingness to travel abroad, and he does the same thing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Nate Solder, Charlton, willing to go to third world countries, not just donate his time, but also donate his money, Charlton, to those children who are less fortunate to help them have a path to a better life.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 24-hour-a-day job, it seems, because you're always one play away from being replaced by somebody else or traded. And then when you have your off time, you're out helping others. Just have so much respect for these players. Jonathan Harrison, New York Jets. Harrison's, you know, you think about where he stands now in the NFL. It hasn't been an easy one, but the former undrafted free agent is no stranger to adversity, and the key reason that he takes so much time to help those in need. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, they always celebrate the number one draft picks in the NFL, Charlton, as they talk about their contracts and how much money they're going to make. Here's a situation with a young man who had to work through all the adversity to make an NFL roster. And he understands that life is not easy, regardless of the path that you take. And he has also reached back to help those that are less fortunate. He may not be that $100 million player in the NFL, Charlton, but it shows that when you put your money out there to help others, Charlton, big things can happen.
Big C, why doesn't the league take more time to acknowledge this and make it something that they're conscious about? Because anytime there's any type of abuse that goes on or some foul play or some substance issues, they put it on the front lines of every press. Why not make it intentional that they make this stuff known, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you have to look at, Charlton, it is not the league who runs the newspaper or the TV station. These are the media outlets. What is America built on, Charlton? America is built on blood and gore. They look for negativity. America's not looking for the feel-good story. You can't turn on the local news at night and see 5 feel-good stories in a row, Charlton. You might get one at the end of the broadcast.
Yeah.
You want to look at all the negativity. That's what gets ratings. So when you hear about an NFL player being pulled over for a DUI, you hear about a domestic violence situation, Charlton, you hear about anything negative that goes on about any professional athlete. That's front page news every day. But when you talk about the goodness that NFL and other professional athletes do throughout the communities, Charlton, throughout the world, these are not stories that the media wants to sell. They don't want to hear about these guys being real people, being great people, being more concerned about others or just as concerned as they are about themselves and their family. Let's see what police bloggers out there that we can run a story about. Let's get them on the camera. We want to find them with some negative tweets. That sells, Charlton. Even the public is the one that buys it. It's not the media that's selling it. It's the public that's buying it.
Yeah, the consumer does choose. That's why I want to make sure have a couple of more players to go. NFL, Walter Payton, Man of the Year nominees as of the 2019 regular season comes to a close. Each team nominates one player who goes far and above and beyond in the community, and the winner receives $250,000 to be donated to the charity of their choice. The 31 remaining players will get $50,000 donated to the favorite charity, courtesy of Nationwide Insurance and the NFL the Foundation. The winner will be announced on the eve of Super Bowl 54 in Miami. Tahir Whitehead, Oakland Raiders. Big C. Whitehead has only been in Oakland for just under 2 seasons, but you'll never be able to tell when looking at the impact in the Bay Area community. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about how impoverished that community has come of late, Charlton, and not only that, they're going to be losing the Oakland A's, not the Oakland A's, but the Warriors. They left and went over to San Francisco. The Raiders are going to be leaving, going to Vegas. But as Whitehead, as you said, been there less than 2 years, has made an impact on this community, and I hope that they don't walk away completely on this community and allow his foundation to continue to thrive.
Yeah, it would be so wonderful to see that going, and I'm sure that it will. Malcolm Jenkins, Philadelphia Eagles, you cannot mention community service and the NFL without pointing at what Jenkins has been doing as a leader for many years in this regard. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you talk about Malcolm in that light, Charlton, he's the president of the Players Association. So he's not only an advocate for the players, he's an advocate for the community and every foundation that the NFL has set up. He's always been a leader in that Philadelphia area, Charlton. He's known more for what he does as a community activist than he is as a football player.
Yeah, it really has. And I just want to make sure that people understand that. Even, I know Colin Kaepernick's not part of the NFL now, but he still has committed that $1 million to go out and help people in need. That was his own money that he did that with. And I'm sure he may have got some help from foundations too, but I just want to bring that in there. Marquise Pouncey, Pittsburgh Steelers. When he's not going all out to protect his quarterback, the Pittsburgh Steelers center is helping the Pouncey Foundation give back to the citizens of Pittsburgh. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, he's a true protector, Charlton. He went out and protected his quarterback in that melee a few nights ago on Monday Night Football. But here's Pouncey, who's been a stalwart in that Pittsburgh community. And when you think about the sports teams of what they've meant to that area, Charlton, over the decades, starting with the Steel Curtain, the Pittsburgh Pirates theme, We Are Family, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Charlton, all of them have had a championship pedigree.
Yeah.
But when you think about Pouncey being a significant part of that area, as well as the Rooney family, Charlton, a great nominee for Man of the Year.
When you think about another Man of the Year, very erudite man, Richard Sherman, graduated at Stanford University, San Francisco 49ers. What Sherman has done through the Sherman Family Foundation and blanket coverage, helping to support students in low-income communities via supplies, clothing, and whatever else they need, Big C. I just really appreciate one of the most outspoken players in the NFL, what he does off the field. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you talk about Sherman, Charlton, he wasn't one of those high-round draft picks when he went to Seattle Seahawks. He started this foundation when he was up there as a Legion of Boom. He's brought that foundation back home to the Bay Area where he went to school at Stanford, Charlton, and been very active in the San Francisco area in his 2 years there.
Yeah, he has done a lot of great work, Big C. Really appreciate it. Bobby Wagner, Seattle Seahawks, dominating in Seattle. The all-pro linebacker is relentless off the field as well as on. And his philanthropy is well known and extends far beyond the Seahawks community. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, here's a guy from Utah State, Charlton, so he didn't go to school far from where he's living now in Seattle. But he's always felt that it was important that he go out financially and help benefit those in the community, Charlton, that were in dire needs. And Bobby has been a leader up in that Seattle area.
Yeah, really has. There's so many good players of all colors, different universities, D1, D2, doesn't matter. And again, the fact that they're voted on by their teammates, I think it merits even more attention. Big C, Mike Evans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, Evans is extremely focused on his charity work in the Tampa Bay area. And back in his Galveston, Texas community, where the Mike Evans Family Foundation, which provides for those less fortunate, and it oftentimes is hit by hurricanes when it comes into the Gulf Coast. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Mike Evans, Charlton, I know we always talk about there's no excuse for domestic violence. He is a leader in the fight against domestic violence, Charlton, in the Tampa and Galveston area where he grew up. He's been in the forefront ever since he was a young man, Charlton, and he's dedicated a lot of his income and time to that horrific cause.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm glad that we want to make sure that we wag the tail for these men, because most of them don't come out and talk about their foundations. If they do it doesn't get a lot of coverage, but Big C Sports wants to bring it to you. Ben Jones, Tennessee Titans. Jones is a centerpiece of the Titans offensive line, but the Jones mission is charity with a focus on education assistance for underprivileged youth. And so many people talk about it, but he really puts his money in his time where his mouth is. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, Charlton, all of these players in the NFL got there by going to high school and going to college to some degree. But they understand that you can't have a start in life without the proper foundation. And here it is, when you go out and you provide the supplies that so many of these young people need, Charlton, in these areas. We see the NFL teams in these cities, Charlton, but we don't see the surrounding area where all these young people don't have the wherewithal to get to the points of what they need. So to be able to provide the books, the clothing, and things to help these kids get to that next level.
I was just thinking about how so many people say they there's no guarantee of making it on a team. You could always be cut from a team. There's always issues, but these people find a way to find time and make time and during their off time to do foundations that don't stop just because they're on the football field. Nick Sundberg, Washington Redskins, has partnered with the Redskins in 2017 to launch the Loads and Love program and install washers and dryers in schools, serving children who don't have access to clean clothes. When you can help people get clean clothing, they feel better about themselves and they do better, as well as putting food in their belly. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's something that so many people don't even have a second thought about, wearing clean clothes every day. But when you think about so many children in the D.C. area, Charlton, our nation's capital, as we talk about our veterans every day that are homeless, that are hungry, that are destitute. Think about the children in the nation's capital, Charlton, that have to go to school every day without clean clothes. This program has been set up, Charlton, to provide washers and dryers to local schools so that these children can come in and get a clean change of clothes during the day and have their clothes washed. It's not an innate right by all Americans to have a washer and dryer in their home. There's still wash houses that exist in this area where I live, Charlton. But think about those kids that don't have the means to get to those facilities, or their parents don't have the extra money. What a great reach out to make every kid feel proud about the way that they look every day at school.
Every day at school, and when you got food in your belly, you can think better. NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year nominees. We just went through it on Big C Sports as of the end of the 2019 regular season. And it comes to a close. Each team nominates one player who goes far above and beyond in the community, and the winner will receive $250,000 to be donated to the charity of their choice. The 31 remaining players will receive $50,000 to their favorite charity, courtesy of Nationwide Insurance. In the NFL Foundation, the winner will be announced on the eve of Super Bowl 54 in beautiful Miami, Florida. Big C, I wanna cover, before we close out tonight, the NFL Thursday Night Football. Baltimore Ravens, they're at home versus the New York Jets. They're a 16.5-point favorite. It was 14.5 at one time, but it's gone up. Jackson obviously will most likely surpass Michael Vick and his rushing yards to be the highest rushing quarterback in the history of the universe in the NFL. Big C, give me your thoughts on Jackson. And you can't assume they're going to win any game. They got to go in there. Every game is just as important as the next. Give me your thoughts on what he's done so far.
Well, Jackson's had a phenomenal season in the NFL thus far. But as you look at, him wearing down, Charlton, these are some of the things you have to protect against. How much do you want to continuously expose him to those huge hulking defensive players in the NFL? Do you make him get down and go down earlier or step out of bounds? The Baltimore Ravens, I don't know if they should play him the whole night if they get the game in hand. You need to see what RG3 can do. He's been sitting on the bench most of the season there in Baltimore as a backup. But at this time of the year, you need to slow down Lamar Jackson just a little bit to keep him healthy for that playoff run.
Yeah, the over-under is 44 points, and I'm sure with the Ravens defense, I don't see the Jets scoring more than 2 touchdowns, and you would think the Ravens are at least good for 4, maybe 5. Looking forward to what's happening in the world of football. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, we know NBA basketball is fantastic. It just doesn't hold a candle, at least right now, to NFL. But we do have a short schedule. Philadelphia at Boston. Some athletes saying that Joel Embiid should work harder, but everybody should work harder, Big C. Cleveland at San Antonio. Portland at Denver. And now we go south of the border. Dallas will play Detroit and Mexico City. Can you say NBA basketball south of the border, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it seems like all American sports are going down there south of the border. You don't have to go all the way over to Europe to play a game. I mean, we have such a great fan base for all American sports down in Mexico. They get American TV. They know who all the players are, and they wear the jerseys.
They wear the jerseys. I want to also, we talk about women and gender equity and Title IX, and it's always important. And I want to just give Big C's top 10 college women basketball programs. Number 1, Stanford University on the West Coast. Number 2, UConn. We know what Ariama has done over the years. Number 3, Oregon, also out of the Pac-12. Number 4, Oregon State out of the Pac-12. Number 5, Baylor University. Number 6, South Carolina. Number 7, Louisville Cardinal, followed by number 8, Florida State, the Seminoles. Number 9, North Carolina State. And number 10, the UCLA Bruins. Big C, I don't know if I was dreaming, but there was a time when this would have been the college football top 10. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it may have been the college football top 10, Charlton, but that seems like all of the best athletes out there used pom-poms at one time and wear the skirt. So all the dominant athletes seem to be, Charlton, in the women's sports on the Pac-12.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine from Chicago, and he's a big-time Bears fan and a big Cubs fan. He told me about there's a bar right near Wrigley Field where a lot of people go get liquored up and then they'll watch the game. He came out to L.A. He said, man, it's beautiful out here, but why do so many people drive around in cars? They have the L system in Chicago. I said they only have one subway system in L.A. It's pretty much north and south, but he still wants to come to L.A. He said he can't believe how warm it is in the wintertime. It's like 50 degrees. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in Chicago, it can be kind of brittle this time of the year with that cold and snow, Charlton, but the sun is always shining out there in California, I hear.
It's always shining in California. We also hear shining down south, and you can shine too. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, there's always so many great things that's going on in the sports universe, but I want to give our thoughts and prayers out tonight, Charlton, the former heavyweight champion Leon Spinks, who is 66 years old, and he's in the hospital, admitted into the hospital today with some serious health issues. Hope him all the best.
I do want to wish him all the best. I think he and his brother, we talked about yesterday, players, NFL football players that have played on the same team. When you have he and his brother, they mean so much to the world of boxing. And I just hope and pray that everything turns out well for him. Big C, one more thought. What would you think would be one of the better upset fights that you've ever seen in the heavyweight division, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, I mean, when you look at the heavyweight division, there's been so many great fights that you thought were going to go one way and went the other way because of one punch. But you always got to go back to Ali and Sonny Liston. It changed the face of all heavyweight boxing, Charlton.
It really does. So out there, keep fighting to get healthy, and we'll always be praying for you. You can also get healthy, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.